So last time we created the client roster for our backend database for our gym or personal training studio or whatever clients that you may have. My name is Ryan Kennedy. I'm a gym owner. I'm trying to recreate a lot of my backend systems to make it a little bit easier and more efficient or save myself time and not have to redo things over and over again. So last time we did the client roster, point of that was so that we made sure every time we use somebody's name, it was going to be the same and that all technology and AI tools and automation stuff that we would use in the future would always associate that name with this person that exists right here. So today we're going to do the same exact thing, but with our exercises. So we're going to create an exercise library. So we're going to keep it in the same workbook. We're going to keep pretty much everything in the same workbook. We're going to create a new sheet. We're going to rename our sheet here, exercise library. And from here, we're going to go with what matters to us in the top headers. So for me, I need the exercise, I need the major category, and I need subcategories, which will make sense later. You don't have to do all this if you just categorize things specifically by one, like name, it's fine. If you have multiple things, if you categorize them even deeper, especially if you're in rehab and stuff like that. And then the next thing is we're going to use the associated 1RM, the associated 1RM percentage, the difficulty level. This is something that we use at my facility is we categorize things by how hard they are so we can give them to the appropriate client and not write as many individual programs every week, every month. We'll put the verbal cueing in. This is something I'm interested in when I teach interns and stuff like that. I want it to be locked in here so that any tool can look it up, they can look it up, just so they can see like how do I actually like say this out loud without having to watch a video, whatever. Then I'm going to use the short video link to keep that in the same place. And I'm also going to include a long video link for some exercises that we teach, like really how to deadlift. We can have a 20-minute video on how that works, or we can have a 15-second video that we use on our online programs for clients to just be reminded of how things work, as well as interns. And then this is something that I prefer to do for some exercises. And remember, whenever you have columns, you don't have to fill all of them in and everything works just fine. It's better to have the information than to not have it, as long as it's organized and in the same way, the same format every time. So I like to use progressions and regressions. This is for my staff mostly to understand the specific, like, if you can't do this exercise, what is your next immediate exercise that you're going to be doing? Or if you want to make this exercise harder, what is the next exercise that we like to do? So that is just a systems perspective. That'll be different for you. That'll be different for me. I like to include it. We're not going to use it on every exercise, just our main ones. And then lastly, this is again for AI lookups and late future use for data for myself. We're going to use the implement. So what type of tool are we using? Was it a dumbbell? Is it a barbell? Is this exercise able to be done with multiple different things? Stuff like that. And then the positions that we could do it in, which I'm actually going to say not everything is in multiple positions. So we're going to put a parenthesis around the S there. So, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to bold this. And we're going to make this a different color. And I'm also going to right click on the row and I'm going to freeze up to row 1 here. What that does is when I scroll, it keeps the row at the top. So when I have a ton of exercise and I forget which column I'm in, I'm trying to fill it in, it just stays up there. Just a preference. And I am going to center everything. And I'm going to pull exercises out because some of them are going to be long. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill in a couple broad exercises of all the different patterns so that we have everything to work with for examples. So we're going to start, we're going to go split squat, we're going to go trap bar, deadlift, we're going to go chin up, dumbbell bench press, half kneeling, single arm dumbbell overhead press, dead bug, payloft press. I think that's good for now. So one thing I want to highlight, it's the same way that we did the client roster of why we're doing this. When I type in an exercise in my database and I try to fill in the weight, I can write half kneeling single arm dumbbell overhead press in 8 different ways because I can abbreviate the first two and then not abbreviate dumbbell, but then abbreviate overhead press. And it would mean the same thing to me. It would mean the same thing to my staff. But when you use any technology or AI tool or automation, it thinks that if it's not the exact way in the exact case, it's a different thing entirely. So I want to make sure that this list is how I use it across the board, and we're going to connect this list to everything else that we do, whether it be our programming software, our weight backend database, whether it be our exercise videos, whatever, so that everything is the same, nothing gets confused. I don't have something that says HKSADB OHB. I don't have something that has half kneeling SA dumbbell overhead press. Like, all those are the same thing to me, not the same thing to a computer. So from here, we're going to go and do some data validation stuff again and create drop downs. This is specific to what you want to do. So I'm going to keep this simple for today. This will not be my final product. We're going to select column B with control click on category in order to get rid of category there. We'll go to data. We'll go to data validation. We'll add a rule in this sheet. We're going to make sure that says B2 all the way down to B1000. You could also take this out. We didn't do this in the other sheet because I don't expect to have 1,000 clients. I could expect to have 1,000 exercises. And just say B. That means that whenever we add rows, say we add another 1,000 rows, it's still going to like work through those rows. Drop down. Correct. Then from here, we want to use all of our movement categories, patterns, however you label exercises. For me, we're going to have knee dominant. We're going to have hip dominant. We're going to have push, pull, core. I believe that's it. Hold on. That's it. Just kidding. We're also going to have power for our athletic exercises and things we use with our athletes. So from here, we're not going to allow multiple selections. An exercise should have just one category, right? We'll go to advanced options. If the data is invalid, show warning or reject input. What we want is reject input so that nothing gets input incorrectly on accident. Display style, I prefer arrow. I just don't like the chips for some reason. Visually, it doesn't make sense to me. Also, it's easier to type in an arrow if you don't want to like select everything and you know that you're just going to be like hip and then press enter, knee and then press enter. So that's my preference. Doesn't really matter. So here, I'm going to label these. So this is a knee dominant exercise. This is a hip dominant exercise. This is a pull. This is a push. This is also a push. This is a core and this is a core. Cool. What we're going to do now is define our subcategories. This is super dependent on what you care about. Again, we're going to keep it super simple today. The ideal world is that we create dependent drop downs so that subcategories are different for knee versus push versus core. That's really difficult to do. You need some scripting and some like super helper columns that I just don't want to deal with because it's more for me to break in the future. And what I really care about is like when I put this in, when I do a split squat and I define the subcategories, maybe there's two, maybe there's one, I'm never doing that again. Like this becomes the code and the law of how split squat works in my system. And until the day I want to change what split squat means in my system, I'm never going to touch it again. And I'm probably actually never going to touch split squat ever again. This can be some weird exercises that I may vary throughout the years, but it's few and far between. So what I'm going to do is make this simple for myself. Is I'm going to create another data validation here. It should still be open from last time if it's not data validation. Drop down. We're going to remove this to C. And then from here, we're thinking about how do we define this specifically? The thing that matters for me is unilateral and bilateral. Those are the two major differences between things. From there, we also have to consider the differing patterns for each exercise. That's going to be in subcategory 2. But just for the perspective of, you know what, actually, I'm going to leave this as is. So it's going to be unilateral or bilateral here, and that's it. And we're actually going to move this to D, just because it's going to bother me if it's not there. So we're going to say this is in D. We just change this back here, so this is going to be in subcategory 2 here. We'll press done, moved it over. So now unilateral, bilateral. Make sense? So from here, so what's the unilateral pattern? Yeah, this is bilateral pattern, bilateral, unilateral because it's single. Dead bug, payoff, press don't matter. We're not going to touch those. We're just going to leave those blank. So now subcategory 2, really the first one, what matters to me, and this is where we really get specific about exercises. So each exercise, each pattern, knee dominant, hip dominant, push, pull, and core all have their subcategories to make it more specific. So for knee dominant, you are either doing a linear knee dominant exercise or you are doing a lateral knee dominant exercise. So basically that means you're either forward or you're sideways. And really lateral, there's very few. There's like lateral squat, lateral lunge, lateral sled drag, stuff like that. Very few, but we still want to define it because that matters to me. So for hip dominant, this is a little different. We categorize by bent knee exercises, stiff knee exercises, and hamstring exercises. So what that means for us is a trap bar deadlift is a bent knee exercise, a RDL is a stiff knee exercise, a hamstring curl is a hamstring exercise. Hamstring is bent knee, but it doesn't work the same way as a trap bar deadlift. Just how we categorize things and how it makes sense to us. Then for pushing, we have vertical pushing, which we're just leaving there. We have horizontal pushing, so vertical being overhead press and horizontal being bench press, push-ups, stuff like that. We also have hybrid. I like to call it hybrid. So we call it like landmine pressing, incline bench pressing. Like it's not perfectly vertical, it's not perfectly horizontal, just how I prefer to define things. That is synonymous with pulling. We have dumbbell rows, horizontal, we have chin-ups, vertical, we have weird pull-down variations that are somewhere in the hybrid range. From here, we go into core. For us, we do anti-extension exercises, we do anti-rotation exercises, we do anti-lateral flexion exercises, and we do rotation exercises. I may add more in the future, but right now, I don't. So again, we're going to go into here, we're going to go to arrow, just because I like the way it looks. I don't want to be able to select multiple things because it should only be one, okay? From here, we're going to press done, and then we're going to pick these. So for split squat, it's a linear exercise. For trap bar deadlift, it is a bent knee hip exercise. For chin up, it is a vertical exercise. For bench press, it is a horizontal exercise. For overhead press, it is a vertical exercise. For dead bug, it is a anti-extension exercise, and for payoff press, it is a anti-rotation exercise. That's rotation. Anti-rotation. There we go. So, again, there is a way to do this to where if knee dominant is selected, then only give me the options linear lateral. I don't see the point in doing it. It's not as native in Google Sheets as you'd like it to be, where you could just be like, if this, then that. I tried doing it with a drop down actually before this video to see if it actually would work the way that I thought it would. More of a pain. And again, I'm not changing this again. When I put this in, I'm probably never touching this again, to be honest with you. So, moving on from this, we're going to go through each column. So these are things that if, no, widen this a little bit so you guys can see. If you work with percentages and you define percentages on a sheet, you'll use these. If you don't need these at all. For us, Associated one around means what exercise, if I had a 1 rep max on it, would this exercise be associated to? So, for example, this is not a good exercise to do it because split squat is actually the 1 rep max. We're going to skip down to overhead press to go from here. Actually, we're going to do dumbbell bench press to make it a little bit simpler. So from here, you could have drop downs, which I probably will, to define what your maxes are, because you don't want a bunch of different exercises. Like you don't want 30 1RM possible things because that'll be too much math. Also, your client shouldn't be doing that many 1 rep max type things. You want to have exercises that you know relate to other things. So for us, we're going to say bench press is the associated 1 rep max. So that means that I want in my system later to find the bench press max, and then I'm going to use this percentage to multiply it by in order to get the weight that we should be doing dumbbell bench press with. So to make this even simpler, we know from research and whatnot, bench press as a 1 rep max using dumbbell bench press as the exercise we want to pull. So say we do 100 pounds. I'll just put this over here. We do 100 pounds on bench press. We know that dumbbell bench press is 80% of bench press generally, if you're trained and have done the exercise before. So that means that this cell here times 80% is 0.8 is going to be 80. And that, so therefore, I'm going to be able to, if I can bench press 100 pounds, I can probably bench press 40 pounds in each hand. I'm going to have to divide it by 2 afterwards in order for 1 rep max. And then from there, you would take your actual exercise percentages. So say you're doing a 8 rep max, you would then take this, and then you would times it by another 0.8 because 80%, 8 reps is 80%. And you're 64. If you really want to dive it down, you divide it by 2. 32 in each hand for 8. Okay, makes sense? So that's why we're using this. For people that don't do percentages, people that use app-based stuff, doesn't really matter. Okay. So for me, I'm actually going to pull out our maxes here. Okay, we're going to go to E. I'm going to pull this up on my other side here. 1 RMs. Okay. So for us, we define things by squat, split squat, RDL, SLRDL, dumbbell bench, dumbbell row. Those are the things that we define 1 rep maxes by. So we'll go arrow. Squat for us is goblet squat. Just to like clarify, we just call it squat, but it's goblet squat. Go from here. So now this doesn't work, right? Because it's not dumbbell bench press, because we don't do that with the adults generally. So from here, split squat is the 1 rep max. So this is always 100%. So this is the max, so therefore it's 100%. So if I get a split squat, I want to make sure this stays 100%, which makes sure that you don't dilute the weight because it's referencing less amounts. Trap bar deadlift is going to be based off of RDL for us. We don't trap bar very often. Our athletes do it more, so this is from an adult perspective. Our chin up is going to be based off of dumbbell row. Again, not a great association. Some exercises won't have associations at all, but I'm just putting these in just to fill out the sheet. This isn't probably what I would exactly do for these exercises. Chin up, we just wouldn't have anything. It'd be blank. Dumbbell bench press, that is our max, 100%. Excuse me. Sorry to get the percentage in there now. You can go in here, highlight the whole thing, go to format, go to number, and make sure it is a percentage. So every time you type something in, it's going to go to a percentage. So if I type in 75, I don't have to put in the percentage sign anymore. Just to make sure that it happens. Overhead press is bench press, And I believe it's 64%. Could be wrong on that, but just have it in there. I believe it's 64. Dead bug, pale off press. Like there's nothing. It doesn't matter. There's no weight, and we don't really care about maxes. We don't want to be like 8 rep maxing a dead bug on most days that we're with clients. I don't really care about the weights being in there. I just want the dead bug to be executed well and executed well every time we do it. So there's not always going to be something in there. Okay. Next thing, difficulty level. So this is something that not a lot of places do, but we define exercises by how hard they are generally, and we assign a difficulty level to a client for a pattern. So for example, every client that comes in to see us gets assessed on movement patterns and strength and stuff like that. From that, we have a list of exercises that are associated with certain patterns. Really, they're all associated with the categories here. For example, a split squat is associated just as a single leg exercise. So if someone is able to do single leg exercises, they would be at a certain difficulty level, then they would get assigned those exercises that are appropriate for their difficulty level. It's confusing. I will make a separate thing entirely someday about our system with that, but for the video, select column. Again, we're going to go drop down. We're going to add a rule. G. Drop down. So there are 3 things. The easiest exercise, green. The medium exercise. And the hardest exercise. So green, yellow, red. It's a little more complicated than that for us. Again, we're going to go to arrow here. It's a little bit more complicated than that. Green is basically like you need the easiest versions of exercises. Think of it like regressions. Yellow is, this is like the baseline. This is where we want you to be as like a human being. Like I want you to goblet squat. I want you to split squat. I want you to dumbbell bench press. I want you to be able to overhead press. Like those are the exercises I want you to be able to do all the time. If you get here and stay here, we're pretty happy with it. Red is you're stronger than the average person. You're more mobile or have more capability and exercises than the average person that we see. So therefore red's going to be some harder exercises, more complicated, if you will. From here, we have a couple options that I've been playing with. I would like to allow multiple selections personally, because some exercises I would be like dumbbell bench press, just from a client flow perspective and logistics perspective, we would go everybody. Like if you can be green and do it, you can be yellow and do it, you can be red and do it because you can just load it more, like it's or load it less, like it's fine. So the problem with the display style, you can't allow multiple selections if it's the arrow. Unfortunately, it just kind of sucks. So you have to go chip, allow multiple selections. It's fine. But for this, we also can customize colors. So you could pick actually green, yellow, red in order to be visually able to see these things. So I am actually going to do that. I'm colorblind, so I need the actual color code for this. So I'm pull this up on a different screen. So for yellow, customize here, yellow. For green, I like four screen, looks better to me. And for red. All right. So now, when we select things, that should be the color in here, which is cool. So let's define these real quick. So for split squat, yellow for us. For trap bar deadlift, also yellow. Core exercise. Chin up is going to be, you could argue with me, it's a yellow or a red exercise. For us, it's both, because chin up, just being overhead is a demanding position for our adults, is a population-based thing, but for our athletes, it's a yellow exercise. Dumbbell bench press, we're going to use all of them because I want most people to be able to do it. Overhead press, we do not overhead press with anybody that's green. So basically, we say that overhead pressing is a yellow and above exercise because people with shoulder issues have a hard time overhead pressing. So we need a category that will assign better exercises to them that they can actually do. in the green category. So we can't have anything that's directly overhead in yellow. Dead bug for us is a green exercise. It's one of the first things you learn as a core exercise. Payoff rest is also green exercise. Okay? So that's how we categorize the difficulty level. And the way that we use that in the future is in our programming software, we assign a red, yellow, green for every block, and that then searches the client's roster, searches their actual rating system of what they're capable of doing, and then assign the right exercise based on the programming. Makes it easier. We can program for an unlimited amount of clients and have the programs be pretty individualized for like an hour of work a month, which is awesome. And that's what we're trying to do at the end of the day. We're not trying to program all the time. We want to coach, we want to do other things, we want to run the business. Okay, so from here, I'm going to leave this blank, but this would just be, you would just copy and paste your verbal cueing in here. And what I would like to do is make sure that these cells don't overflow and wrap around. They make the cell bigger. Visually, it's going to be a mess. And not that this needs to be visually great, but for me, it does. So say, for example, we said we are split over a pad going straight up and down, whatever. It's going to overflow to the next column, which if we put something here, it's fine. But also, if we had multiple lines, what is it, Alt Enter? Yes, here, it's going to open up the cell. I don't want that to happen. So if I don't want this to open up the cell, what I'm going to do, highlight this entire column, and I'm going to go here to text wrapping, right here. I don't want to wrap, and I don't want to overflow. So I'm going to clip. Okay. So now it should be fine. From here, short video link. So for example, with our facility, well, I'm going to pull it up here. Do we have any of these? Kind of. We'll do dead bug heel taps. That's fine. Share. Okay, so I would post in here for dead bug the video link that we have. So this right here would pull up the appropriate exercise that we're looking for. If you have videos, you can also use other people's videos, whatever. This is just for intern staff to be able to know that we have these exercises on videos, people to be able to watch them. We also use them for our online programming. Say we program this on, like, we use Trello for some of our online stuff, and I need to make sure that people know what the exercises are, how to do them, so on and so forth. So that we would put that exercise there if we had it. And we can also clip these so they don't overflow. Same way. Long video link, I actually don't have any of these right now. It's a long-term project for me. But this would be like me verbally explaining how to do a dead bug, how it works, mistakes, stuff like that. More of a teaching thing, more to use for staff development, educational resources, things like that. Now, let's talk about progressions and regressions. We're going to make this easy. So for a split squat, if somebody cannot do a split squat, assisted split squat. Okay? We're holding on to something. If they can't do that, that sucks. Probably not going to be squatting at all. Progressions. If you are great at split squat, you've reached some weight threshold that your facility has defined, you've done it long enough, your coaches decide it's time to move on. Rear foot elevated split squat is our next exercise generally. These are just used for coaching generally. You could separate these by commas to be like, there are other options. You can say single leg squat. There are other options to do. That could also be like, if you can't assisted split squat for some reason because of injury or something, we would go to a goblet squat. Really would probably be a press out squat. All those things. Okay. This is facility dependent. Totally up to you if you even want to use these categories. I use them entirely for education, but I could also see a reason in the future where AI tools really want context of what you would do in this purpose. if you couldn't do a split squat to make better decisions, which is why I would probably include it on everything going forward. But really, most facilities, if you think of like the Mike Wells of the world that are incredibly systematic with their education and how their flow works and stuff like that, and their staff, they are like, these are the main exercises. We split squat, we chin up, we SLRDL, we trap bar deadlift. And if you can't do those, do this or do that. And that's like it for them. But it makes it incredibly systematic and consistent, which is great. Up to you. That's what they're there for. I'm also going to cut these. So I'm going to highlight both from control click to select both multiple things. Clip, just so stay down. Okay, implement. So implement is what object, what tool, what thing can we use in order to do this exercise? This is a context column. So I really care about what could we possibly do. We may not do it, and this may not be used very often. Okay. So I'm just going to pull up what I have on my other sheet here. Okay. So, same thing of data validation. Add a rule. I apologize. Or actually, we can do it this way. M2 colon M. We'll put this thing all the way down. Drop down. We're going to add whatever possible implements, and you may be like, oh, you forgot something? Probably. But as I like put all my exercises in the future, I will automatically know, oh, this thing's not in there. So don't worry. As long as you know how to get back to this, which it's data validation, you'll be fine. So trap bar is an implement. A dumbbell is an implement. A barbell is an implement. Bands are implements. Cables are implements. Anchor, we use different type of cable system sometimes. This is just because the weight is wildly different from an actual cable machine. It's more air resistance, so we use that separately. Body weight. There's probably more, but that's what I got so far. So you want to allow multiple selections here because things can be done in multiple ways. So I'm gonna press done. I'm gonna go do a couple of these here. So for split squat, we can use dumbbell, we can use a barbell, we can use a band, we can use body weight, we could probably use cable, we can use the anchor, I guess. So all good there. Dumbbell, bench press, or chin up, body weight, dumbbell bench press, gonna be dumbbells. Dumbbell overhead, gonna be dumbbells. Dead bug, could be body weight, could use a cable, could use an anchor, could use a band, could use a dumbbell in order to make that harder. Could be possible. We could also have different variations for the dead bug. So you may be like, oh, I don't want that to be diluted, so I would remove dumbbell, I would remove band, cable, anchor. It's just a body weight exercise because otherwise I would label it dumbbell weighted dead bug. I would label it band pullover dead bug, so on and so forth. Payoff press, banded. Could use a cable though. Could use an anchor. That's implements. That's what we would do. So next thing, positions. Same thing we're doing here. Making sure this is in. Drop down. What do we got for positions? I have like a very specific position standard. So we have hook lying position. That's laying on your back with the feet flat on the floor. We have a seated position. We have tall kneeling. We have half kneeling. We have split stance. We have staggered. And we have stand. Okay. Allow multiple selections again. Press down. So, split squat. This is split stance. That's it. Trap bar deadlift. Could do a standing, could do a staggered. Chin up. Doesn't really apply. Doesn't really matter. So, leave blank. You can put standing if you really want to. Bench press. Doesn't really matter. It's done the same way. Half kneeling. Overhead press. Half kneeling position. Dead bug. Hook lying position. On your back. Could be feet flat on the floor, but hook lying position is what we call a dead bug. Payoff press. Standing. So this is where you could do things differently than I would. I'm going to have every exercise independently. So I'm going to have a split stance payoff press, half kneeling payoff press, tall kneeling payoff press, and have those all individual things. But you could also say, well, when I use payoff press, it could be all of these things. That's up to you. I will be doing it the other way because it's going to be able to be more specific. So this is the exercise library. And all you got to do is fill it out, which I have on my other sheet. Let's see how many I actually have. I have right now 510 exercises on here that not that I would use all the time, but I definitely did not include things that I knew I would not use. Um, I'm starting to include some warm up exercises because I forget them often and I lose them, and I often name them 6 different things over the course of a month that I use them. So I'm trying to get them in a way that they're consistent across the board. So what I'm actually going to do is we're going to go back to data validation in category and B, and we're going to add one more, and we're going to call it warm up. Warm ups. And that will probably be mobility exercises and stuff. I probably further categorize that. My subcategories would probably be like mobility, flexibility, rehab, prehab, stuff like that. But that warm ups would probably be my big like category before that because we use them very often in warm ups instead of doing traditional like go sit on the bike or like do these 4 stretches. We do like very like corrective exercise almost. You could also corrective exercise as a term, whatever works for you. So we're just gonna make sure that actually shows up. It does. Perfect. So that is the exercise library. We're gonna fill that out. So I don't think there were any formulas that I used for anything that I need to drop in the description. So I think we're good to go. Obviously, if you have questions, let me know. And I will also, like when I'm doing more of this, I'll just input like my library so that people can use it and if people are interested in stuff like that. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Longer one. Appreciate it. We'll do probably the weight back ends next time. Actually start using these exercises and the client roster and stuff like that, which would be cool, and connect them to other things. So, see ya.